Have you ever wondered what would happen if Naruto Uzumaki didn't just beat his enemies, but became them? Not borrowed their techniques, not trained to replicate their jutsu, but actually, fundamentally, at the level of his blood and his chakra and the marrow of his bones, absorbed who they were? Honestly, let me tell you, you are not ready for what this chapter does to you, because chapter 1 isn't about power. Not really. It's about a 7-year-old boy sitting alone in a sewer eating cold ramen, and the moment the universe decides he's going to be something no one in the history of Shinobi has ever seen before. It's about the question nobody in Konoha thought to ask. What if surviving wasn't just luck? What if surviving was the ability? Part 1. The Boy in the Sewer. Now, before we get into the divergence from canon, I need you to understand something. I need you to understand who Naruto Uzumaki actually is at 7 years old. Not the version you've been told about, not the goofy prankster who spray paints the Hokage monument because he wants attention, but the real version. The version that only comes out in the dark. Because here's the thing about Naruto that the show glosses over in about 30 seconds. This child has been surviving completely alone in a village that despises him since before he could read. We open not at the academy, we open underground. The Konoha sewage maintenance tunnels run beneath the entire village, a network of pipes and maintenance corridors that were designed to be accessed by workers and forgotten about by everyone else. They smell like standing water and iron and old earth. They are lit by small oil lanterns that the maintenance crews leave behind and never quite remember to collect. They are, for a 7-year-old boy who has been turned away from 3 restaurants in a single evening, the most private place in the world. That's where we find Naruto. Sitting cross-legged on a dry stretch of concrete, a battered pot of instant ramen balanced on his knees. Cold, because he couldn't get near enough to a stove without someone chasing him out, eating with methodical patience, not rushing, not crying, just eating with the careful, deliberate focus of someone who has learned to make every resource last as long as possible. And you might be thinking, okay, sad, tragic, I've heard this before, the orphan who eats alone. Classic backstory. But hold on, because what I need you to clock is how Naruto is sitting. He's watching the entrance to the tunnel. Not anxiously, not fearfully, with the quiet, patient attention of someone who has learned that the world will eventually send something through every door, and that you should always know where the exits are before it arrives. 7 years old, and he is already watching exits. That's not the Ninetales making him tough. That's not fate. That's a child who has been shaped by years of a village teaching him, one turned back and one slammed door and one whispered curse at a time, that he is not safe anywhere, and who responded to that lesson not by breaking, but by learning, by adapting, by surviving. The loudness, the pranks, the shouting his dream of becoming Hokage at every person who will stand still long enough to hear it, that's armor. Understand that. The real Naruto is the boy in the sewer, watching the door, eating cold ramen, doing mental arithmetic on how much chakra paper he can afford this week if he skips lunch on Thursday. Now, here's where the story begins. Part 2. The Night the Seal Cracks. It's 3 weeks after his 7th birthday, which he spent alone, obviously, and Naruto is in training ground 4 at 2 in the morning. Not training ground 7, 4, because 7 is the one Kakashi-sensei uses, and even without a teacher yet, Naruto has developed an instinct for avoiding spaces where adults will find him doing things they haven't given him permission to do. He's trying to form a shadow clone. Now, in canon, we know Naruto can't do this yet, won't be able to for years, because the chakra control required is absurd, and Naruto's control at this stage is catastrophically bad. His reserves are massive, far beyond what any 7-year-old should possess, and he has absolutely no technique for managing them. It's like trying to thread a needle while someone is firing a fire hose through your hands. He fails. Again. 12 times in a row, producing nothing but smoke and a headache. But here's what's different. He doesn't stop. This is the detail that matters, the detail that makes everything else possible. Because the Naruto in Training Ground 4 at 2 in the morning, the Naruto who has already eaten cold ramen alone in the sewer and spent his birthday watching a sunrise by himself, is not working toward a goal. He's practicing because the alternative is lying in his apartment staring at a ceiling that doesn't care about him. And moving is always better than being still when the thoughts get loud. He doesn't know he's building the foundation of something impossible. He just knows that this hurts less than not trying. On attempt 13, 4 older boys drop down from the tree line. Now you might be wondering, who sends Genin-level teenagers after a 7-year-old? And the answer is, nobody sends them. That's actually worse. These are kids who got here on their own initiative. 3 academy graduates who washed out of their teams, 1 Chunin dropout who's been doing low-level escort missions for 2 years and fermenting resentment for longer. Their names don't matter. What matters is that they've had a bad week, and they've decided, the way that people decide terrible things, slowly and without acknowledgement, that Naruto Uzumaki is a safe target. He's not a person to them. He's the demon brat. He's the Nine-Tails. He's everything their sensei mentioned in a hushed voice when explaining why last year's attack happened and why the Hokage makes certain decisions that good people struggle to understand. They're a symbol, and symbols don't bleed the same way people do. The Chunin dropout, let's call him what the story calls him, Tenzo, which is deliberately ironic if you know your Anbu lore, has wind release. Not masterfully, not with any artistry, but enough. He charges wind chakra in his palm and shapes it into something ugly, a blade meant not to kill, but to mark, to cut across both of Naruto's hands in a way that will permanently damage the tendons, in a way that will make it impossible to form hand seals correctly for the rest of his life. The message is simple. You will never become a shinobi. We are making that choice for you. They've told themselves this is justice, that it's protecting the village, that something like him shouldn't be allowed near the tools of this profession. They have a whole story about it, a whole justification, the kind that only sounds logical when you've been building it in a dark room alone. They are, to be very clear, children who have been poisoned by the same village that poisoned everyone else's opinion of Naruto. They're not evil, they're just catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. Naruto runs. He's fast, always has been, fast and low to the ground the way that kids who spend a lot of time being chased tend to get. And he gets almost far enough. Almost. The wind blade catches him across the shoulder instead of the hands, a deep, burning cut that drops him immediately, spins him into the dirt, takes his breath completely away. He gets up. This is the moment, this exact moment. Not because Naruto does anything special, not because he says something profound. He gets up because he does not know how to stay down, because no one ever taught him that either, and that's the most heartbreaking part of this whole scene. His resilience isn't noble right now, it's just the only response pattern he has. He gets up, he staggers, he tries to run again. The second attack hits him directly. And here, in the dirt of Training Ground 4 at 2:15 in the morning, with no witnesses and no rescue coming, something inside the seal that Minato Namikaze placed on his son 7 years ago, something that was never meant to activate this way, something that Minato's brilliance couldn't fully account for because Minato didn't know the full scope of what his wife's bloodline was capable of, fractured. Not breaks, fractured, like a crack running through a dam. The Uzumaki clan were the greatest sealers in the history of the shinobi world. Everyone knows that. What fewer people know, what even most Uzumaki didn't fully understand about themselves, is the reason their seals were so powerful. It wasn't just chakra volume, it wasn't just technique. Uzumaki seals worked because Uzumaki blood had an extraordinary relationship with residual chakra, with the echoes that living things leave behind when they die, when they spend enormous amounts of energy, when they exist intensely enough to leave a mark on the world. Uzumaki seals could hold those echoes, could contain them, could keep them stable across generations. It was meant to be a tool for preservation, for memory, for passing down techniques without scrolls. But Minato's seal was designed to hold one thing, the Nine-Tails. And the pressure of that, the enormous, constant, roiling fury of a tailed beast pressing against those fractured walls, has been doing something for 7 years that Minato didn't anticipate. It's been inverting the function. Instead of sealing chakra away, the fractured Uzumaki bloodline has been slowly, gradually, inexorably learning to pull residual chakra in. And tonight, with Naruto bleeding and unconscious in the dirt, with his own chakra system spiking wildly in response to physical trauma, the fractured function activates for the first time. The 4 older boys step forward to do something worse, something they haven't quite articulated even to themselves. They stop, because Naruto's chakra has just spiked in a way that doesn't make sense. Not the Nine Tails, this isn't the red killing intent that every shinobi in Konoha has been trained to run from. This is something smaller, something quieter, something that... Part 3. The wind under his skin. 3 weeks after training round 4, Naruto is in the sewer. His sewer, the maintenance tunnel, home in the only sense that word has ever applied to him, and he picks up a fallen oak leaf from the tunnel entrance. He's not thinking about it. He's thinking about an academy lesson on chakra nature that Iruka-sensei taught yesterday, about how certain people have natural affinities, about how wind-release shinobi can cut through anything if they learn to push chakra through an edge. The leaf disintegrates. Not slowly, not partially. In his hand, with zero deliberate effort, the leaf turns to clean-cut fragments between his fingers, sliced by a whisper of wind chakra that he did not consciously produce. Naruto stares at his hand for a very long time. He picks up another leaf, concentrates, tries to not do it this time. The leaf sits intact. He focuses, tries to actually channel what just happened. The leaf disintegrates again. He sits back down. The ramen in his pot is, as usual, cold. It feels like a memory, he thinks, with the strange, precise accuracy of a child who has never been taught to doubt his instincts because no adult has ever been available to give him better ones. It feels like remembering something I never learned. He's right. He just doesn't have the vocabulary for what he's describing. He has been sitting with wind chakra humming under his skin for 3 weeks, the residual signature of a Chunin dropout who hit him with a wind blade and left traces of their nature behind the way you leave footprints in wet concrete. It's not complete, not usable in any real sense. He can't throw windjutsu, he can't shape it with hand seals, but it's there. It is undeniably, impossibly there. Fast forward to the academy, to the months that follow. Nobody notices. This is the part that is both completely understandable and absolutely devastating. Nobody notices because Naruto is Naruto, the dead last, the boy who can't sit still and fails written exams and draws on his desk when he's bored. And the idea that he might be quietly practicing a secondary chakra nature at 3 in the morning in various training grounds across Konoha doesn't occur to anyone because it doesn't fit the story they've already decided about him. Iruka-sensei catches him once. Training ground 7, 4 a.m., the leaf disintegration exercise. Iruka comes in for his own early morning training, stops dead at the gate, watches a 10-year-old boy in an orange jacket sitting cross-legged with a pile of leaves in front of him, methodically slicing each one with whisper-thin wind chakra. He watches for a full 2 minutes. Then he leaves. Comes back 20 minutes later with a bento box, which he sets against the gatepost without a word and walks away. He doesn't tell anyone. You might wonder why, and the answer is complicated and very human. Partly because he wants to protect Naruto from the scrutiny that would come with being unusual in a new way. Partly because some part of him needs to believe that this kid is figuring out how to be okay, and naming it feels like it might jinx something. And partly, honestly, most importantly, because he doesn't want to have to explain to the Hokage's office why Naruto Uzumaki is developing a chakra nature that has no business being in his lineage. That conversation will have to happen eventually, but not today. Naruto eats the bento box, leaves the empty container at the gatepost with a thank you note. He is 11 years old and already keeping secrets that he doesn't fully have names for. Part 4, Team 7 and the Road to Waves. Now, fast forward through what we already know. The graduation, the team assignment, the bell test where Naruto gets tied to a post and everyone goes home hungry, the beginning of Team 7. Here's what's different about this Naruto in the early missions. He's quieter than he should be during planning. Not in a way anyone can pinpoint, not in a way Kakashi or Sakura or Sasuke could name if you ask them. Just, when Kakashi lays out a plan, Naruto stops talking for about 10 seconds before he responds, and in those 10 seconds, he's doing something behind his eyes that none of them have learned to recognize yet. He's running exits. He's learned enough about wind nature to know that his range is improving. He's learned enough about his own chakra to know that the massive reservoirs he was always told were a liability are in fact the opposite, because the spiral inheritance, the fractured seal function pulling in residual chakra, needs a vast internal reservoir to store what it collects without overflowing. He's a lake. Most shinobi are ponds. He didn't understand why that mattered before. He's starting to. He has not told anyone. He tries the shadow clone once in secret, using a scroll he stole from the academy supply room and returned the next morning with a note that said, "Sorry, I needed to check something." And when the technique works, when 300 identical copies of Naruto explode into existence in Training Ground 4 and then simultaneously collapse from chakra overload, he sits in the middle of the field for a very long time. He has just discovered that he can learn, through clones, at 300 times the speed of a normal shinobi. He also has a splitting headache that lasts 4 days. He tells no one. The C-rank mission to the Land of Waves is assigned. They go. Everything happens as it happens in canon: the demon brothers on the road, Kakashi's fake death, the bridge builder Tazuna and his impossible request, the fog and the swords, and Zabuza Momochi appearing from the water like something dredged up from a nightmare. But here's what I need you to pay attention to. Here's the detail that doesn't look like a detail until later. When Naruto watches Zabuza fight, genuinely watches, crouched on the bridge in the aftermath of the first encounter while Kakashi recovers from the water prison, he doesn't just feel inspired the way he does in canon. He isn't just thinking, "Wow, that's amazing, I want to be that strong." Something in his blood is listening. The silent killing technique, the water chakra so dense and heavy that it rolls off Zabuza like weather, it's the most sophisticated use of suppression Naruto has ever encountered, and the spiral inheritance, dormant since Training Ground 4, begins to turn like a compass finding north. It doesn't activate, not yet, but it is awake. Part 5. Haku. And now we reach the part of this chapter that is going to wreck you. I'm telling you right now, if you think you're prepared, you're not. Haku. Let's talk about Haku. In canon, Haku is one of the most heartbreaking characters in the entire Naruto series. A child with a Kekkei Genkai who was nearly killed by his own father, who was found by Zabuza and remade into a tool, who loved that man with the entirety of his capacity for love because Zabuza was the first person who ever looked at him and saw something worth keeping, who died on a bridge in the Land of Waves protecting someone who used him because that was all he knew how to do with his heart. In this story, that is all still true. Every word of it. But the ending is different. Here's what happens. The battle in the mist, the crystal ice mirrors, Sasuke's sacrifice play that costs him his life, or what looks like his life, all of that runs parallel to canon. Naruto screaming Sasuke's name, Naruto's rage, the Nine-Tails chakra rising. But when Naruto breaks through Haku's ice mirrors, when the final moment comes and Haku, masked and still, stands between Naruto and nothing, having already accepted what comes next, Naruto does something that canon Naruto also does, but that matters differently here. He stops. He sees Haku's mask fall, sees the face of a boy his own age, maybe younger, sees eyes that are not afraid and not angry and not anything except ready, in the particular way that only people who have decided there is nothing left to lose look ready. And Naruto says, "Why aren't you running?" And Haku says, because this is who Haku is, because there is nothing to run toward. You might be wondering, what does that mean in the context of this story? What does that do to Naruto? And I want you to think for a moment about what Naruto already carries inside him: the cold ramen, the sewer, the exit watching, the leaf that disintegrated in his hand, the bento box left at a gate by someone who didn't know how to say, "I see you," out loud. Naruto knows what it means to have nothing to run toward. He knows it in his body, in the muscle memory of 1,000 mornings he got up and went to the academy because moving was better than staying still, not because there was anything waiting for him at the other end. He says, "That's not true." Haku looks at him. "You ran toward Zabuza," Naruto says, and his voice does something in this moment that it doesn't do in canon. It goes very quiet, very steady. The voice of the boy in the sewer rather than the boy on the Hokage monument. You ran toward him. That's a person. That's not nothing. Even if he used you, you weren't running toward nothing, you were running toward him. Haku is silent for a long moment. "Is that enough?" he asks. And he genuinely doesn't know. This is a real question. Naruto opens his mouth to answer. And then Zabuza's battle turns, and Kakashi's lightning strikes, and Haku moves, because Haku will always move, because whatever he is, whatever Zabuza made him into, this is the truth of who he chose to be, and takes the hit that was meant for Zabuza, and dies. Right there, in the mist, on the bridge, in front of a boy who just told him he wasn't running toward nothing. Now, here's where everything diverges from canon in a way that matters permanently. Naruto goes to him, drops to his knees. This is canon. He weeps. This is canon. But Naruto reaches out and puts his hands on Haku's chest. Not to check for a pulse, he already knows. Not as a gesture of comfort for someone who can no longer feel comfort. He does it because the spiral inheritance is awake, and it is pulling, and he doesn't know how to stop it, doesn't know that he should try to stop it, doesn't understand what's happening except that something in him is reaching toward the fading warmth of the most powerful chakra he has ever been near. The ice release. Haku's Kekai Genkai, the fusion of water and wind, the bloodline that let him build crystal mirrors from ambient humidity and move between them faster than most jonin could track, flows out of a dying body and into a living one with the slow, inevitable patience of water finding a crack. Naruto doesn't feel it happen, not exactly. It's not painful, it's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's like a door opening in a room he didn't know existed. He collapses, chakra exhaustion to every outside observer. Kakashi is there in seconds, checks for injuries, finds none, assumes it's the emotional and physical strain of the fight combined with Nine Tails bleed over. Not unusual. Concerning, but not unusual. Sasuke, still alive, recovering, leaning against the bridge railing, watches. Gives Naruto a look he's never given him before. Not contempt, not rivalry, something closer to the expression you get when you see something you don't have a category for yet. The battle ends. Zabuza makes his own terrible, beautiful choice. The bridge is won. Tazuna weeps. Everyone stands in the cold, salt air of the land of waves and breathes. Part 6. The Frozen Cup. The boat back to the land of fire leaves at dawn. Naruto sits at the prow. Everyone else is sleeping. Tazuna, passed out from exhaustion, Kakashi in that light doze he pretends is full sleep, Sakura with her head on her own pack. Even Sasuke, who sat up watching Naruto for a full hour before his body overruled his stubbornness and dragged him under. Naruto sits with a cup of water from the boat's supply barrel. He is thinking about what Haku said. There is nothing to run toward. And what he said back, and whether he was right or whether he just wanted to be right, which are different things, and he knows the difference even at 12 years old. He looks at the cup. He thinks, without any particular intention, the way you think about a word until it stops making sense, about ice, about mirrors, about the way a crystal lattice forms, molecule by molecule, each piece locking into place with a precision that is almost musical. The water in the cup freezes solid, not partially, not in layers, all at once from the center outward, a perfect freeze that produces no sound at all. Naruto stares at it for a very long time. He is not afraid. He thinks he should be afraid. He knows with the exit-watching instinct that has kept him alive for 12 years that this is the kind of thing that ends careers, that gets people locked in rooms and studied, that makes the people who already hate him find new and better reasons. He knows this is dangerous information. But what he feels, looking at the frozen cup in his hands, is something else entirely. Haku, he thinks, not as a question, not as a memory, as an acknowledgement, as a name that now means something permanent in the architecture of who he is. I'll carry you. He says it quietly, to the sea, to the dawn coming up gray and cold over the water. The cup sits frozen in his hands, solid, still, permanent. And somewhere inside the fractured seal, in the hall of residual chakra that the Uzumaki bloodline has been quietly building since Training Ground 4, a door that was just an outline an hour ago becomes a door with a room behind it. A room that belongs to a boy with dark eyes and a mask and nothing to run toward, who chose to run anyway. Naruto puts the cup down carefully on the railing. He watches the sunrise. He does not cry. He has already cried, and that was real and necessary, and he did not hold it back the way he usually holds things back. Now, he does something else, something that is new, and also somehow the most natural thing he has ever done. He starts planning. Because there is wind under his skin from someone who tried to hurt him, there is ice in his blood from someone who tried to protect someone who couldn't be saved, there is water chakra in the distant edges of his awareness from the mist that still clings to him from Zabuza's battle. Not absorbed, not yet, just noticed in a way it wasn't before. He is 12 years old. He is the dead last of the academy. He failed the graduation exam twice, and he is sitting on a boat at dawn with a Kekkei Genkai that has no business being in his body, mapping out exits in his mind the way he always does, except this time, when the exits open, they open inward. So here's what I need you to sit with. Naruto didn't choose this. He didn't find a scroll, didn't make a deal, didn't train for a secret technique. The spiral inheritance chose him the way trauma chooses, without permission, in the dark, in a moment of terrible vulnerability that he survived because he always survives. But here's the question that's going to haunt the rest of this story, and I want you to carry it into Chapter 2. When you absorb someone, when their chakra becomes part of your chakra and their instincts start appearing at the edges of your thinking and their grief becomes a room in your heart that you didn't build, are you honoring them or are you just collecting the dead? Because Itachi is going to ask him that, eventually. And that question, that exact question, is going to be the most dangerous thing Naruto Uzumaki ever faces. Not pain, not Madara, not the war. The question of whether by the time he's finished, there will be enough of him left to answer. What happens next, Chapter 2, The Weight of Other People's Pain, is where the Chunin exams begin, and nothing will ever be simple again.